All right, we're doing a couple of things today. One, I've got a baby waking up in any second now, so we're going to try to make the world's shortest muffin video. Two, we're checking on the chili. I promised everyone a little preview of what the chili was going to look like, but oh, there it is. Trying to get on that. So that's after, what are we now? We're probably about 24 hours into cooking right now. You can see the color of that. It's a lot darker than it was yesterday. It's cooked down and I've added water a couple of times. We'll let that go. There's a little bit of chunky stuff that cooks onto the bottom there, but if you keep it on low heat and stir it regularly, it doesn't burn so much as it just caramelizes on the bottom there. Ooh, that'll taste good. Might need to add water a couple more times. I probably got that a little hot. You can see how much it's bubbling. Just bring it down to super low heat. You want it hot, but not absurdly so. Keep us in frame. There we go. So two, we're making my favorite muffin recipe, and I told myself I would do this before I made the video, but I didn't because I'm just a horribly disorganized person. It's unconventional baker, that's what it is. So my wife loves to find us recipes for me to try. A long time ago, she found this vegan gluten-free triple chocolate banana bread recipe that I made one time. I actually don't think I've ever made it triple chocolate. I've only ever made double chocolate. It's a chocolate banana bread with chocolate chips in it. And if you follow the recipe online, you make a chocolate sauce for on top. I made it one time, don't think I made the topping. It was pretty good. But I have poached that recipe. I have it in my little, this is a family cookbook that I made, printed up a little cover for it and all. And I have turned it into my everything muffin recipe. Anytime I want muffins, I do this recipe. It's the easiest thing in the world. You can change it. I have talked a lot about how I don't like recipes, and I'm immediately following up with a video with a recipe. Baking, obviously, a little bit more recipe-centric. Otherwise, you're going to get soup, or you're going to get, a rice cracker where you're going for a cake. But for this one, to the extent it's a recipe, it's the most forgiving recipe you could ever use. I do want to give credit. Unconventional baker, a ton of vegan and gluten-free, fantastic recipes there. But if you use a little creativity, you can adapt that same recipe for sort of every day of the week muffins. This one I make sometimes, what do they call them? Morning glory muffins with carrot and pineapple and nuts and what have you. I'm getting a little close to that this time. I've made it with kiwi fruit. I've made it with dried apples. You can make it chocolatey. You can, if you put in cinnamon, nutmeg, powdered ginger, you can make a gingerbread muffin. Easy as pie. It's the easiest thing in the world. It's going to be a little loud because I'm going to use the blender and the mixer, but I'm going to show you how to make the world's easiest muffin. So the recipe calls for 4 ripe bananas. I have however many ripe bananas were in our freezer because they got too ripe. It's probably about 8, I don't know. But like I said, to the extent I follow recipes, I follow them pretty loosely. So the recipe calls for 4 ripe bananas. I'm making a double recipe because I brought bagels in to my wife's work recently, and someone asked if I made them myself, and I didn't, and now I feel bad about it, so now I'm making muffins to bring in, so the next time someone says, oh, did Chris make these? She'll be able to say yes. 4 ripe bananas. It calls for half a cup of olive oil. I'm putting in a cup because I'm doubling the recipe. I can sense check myself here. Doubling recipes is a weak spot of mine. I tend to double everything except one thing, or double something the wrong way. Keep grabbing the wrong ingredients to put in. 1 cup of maple syrup. I'm doing 2. So far, so good on the math, right? We're getting there. It wants 3/4 of a cup of non-dairy milk. I think I've got 1.5. I guess, I don't know. Close, probably close. I poured some of it out for a cup of tea, so we'll see. And then it calls for vanilla. I don't think I ever once in my life have measured vanilla. Certainly not going to start now. You just eyeball that. A teaspoon of vanilla is what the recipe calls for. I put a large splash. I also love almond extract. Anything that makes something taste like marzipan's good in my book. a bit of almond extract. You're off to the races. All your wet ingredients go in the blender. Hold your ears. Pretty good, I reckon. And then, here we go. Dry stuff. And this is where the recipe gets really forgiving. Recipe calls for 1 cup of brown rice flour. One of these is rice flour. I want to say it's this guy. 1 cup of brown rice flour. I had that, so I'm using 2 cups of brown rice flour. Bam. It calls for half a cup of buckwheat flour. You can use buckwheat, you can use sorghum flour, you can use millet flour I've used before. You can, essentially anything in that sort of vaguely sweetish gluten-free baking flour, you're good to go. So I've got, because I'm doubling, 1 cup of, I used sorghum flour this time. Like I said, you can use buckwheat, you can use sorghum, you can use millet. If you're making the recipe the regular way, then you're in for half a cup. And then half a cup of potato starch. You can use tapioca starch. You could probably make it with cornstarch. I'm using tapioca starch, 1 cup thereof. Bam. And then we've got 1 teaspoon of guar gum, 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder, and 1 teaspoon of baking soda. I've put them all in here in my mise en place. Cheating a little bit. I'm trying to make things a bit ahead of time, so I'm not making these 40-minute long videos where it's mostly me just talking about mental health while I sort of lazily cook and blather on endlessly. I'm doing it right now. So you got your guar gum, your baking soda, your baking powder in your mixer. Boom. Get that going. Into that, I guess I'll step away so you can hear me. Into that, your wet ingredients. Look at that. Right in there. Let's see if I can bring you with me on this journey. Turn it around. There it goes. Mixing up a real treat. Especially if you're making a double batch, you probably want to get in there and give it a little scrape as it goes. Let's see if we can, there it is. Do I have a spatula? Take you on a tour of the kitchen with me. Oh, look at that, spatula. We're making it happen today. See, look at that, a little bit stuck on the sides. Get it mixed in. Bam. Make sure the rest of this is in there. Get her going. I don't know how well you can hear me over the sound of that mixer, but you're going to listen to us both. One nice thing about gluten-free baking is you don't have to worry about over-mixing anything. Now I am putting into that lemon zest. Bam, a little bit of lemon zest. Well, it's a miracle I didn't just toss that in. I've got some pineapple I chopped up. Go. And I like to add some form of nuts. I got cashews. I told you, recipes are not my strong suit. You just want to whack some of those in there. That looks pretty well and mixed. There we go. Oh, that mix is getting all after it. There we go. Oh yeah, tasty stuff. So one nice thing about this recipe is it's also refined sugar-free. If that matters to you, I've never really been afraid of sugar, but I have tried to cut it back a little bit. I found as a youth, you know, you can sort of eat whatever you want and things work out for you. And then when you get older, I don't know, it probably seems like a good idea to cut. You dog, now you dogs are ruining my audio. It's a good thing you're cute. Not that I'm not making enough noise just by myself, eh? So, like I said, making a double batch, you want to preheat your oven to 350. I guess I could have said that at the start, but we're trying to make this video so quick you wouldn't have had time to do it anyway. The other thing I like to do for baking for almost all purposes, this you want to preheat usually a little longer than your recipe says so your oven can get good and hot. The other thing, definitely for gluten-free baking, is to try to get as much oven bounce as you can. Oven bounce is that first initial rise you get in baked goods when they get in a hot oven, and the moisture in your, boom, there we go. The moisture in your baked goods starts to get hot and turn into steam and starts to rise. And then of course, you know, you've got baking soda and baking powder in there, and they start making their own little chemical reactions that creates some rise. To get as much oven bounce as you can, think about it when you're you want a hot oven. So when you first put something in the oven, you've just opened the oven door and let out a ton of heat. Now, you want to minimize the amount of heat that you're losing so your oven stays about as hot as you want it when you put stuff in. We're juggling pans and bowls and a lot. Here we go. So the way to do that is create something like a heat sink in your oven, you know, a store of heat. Same principle that people are using, you know, breadstones or pizza stones for, so you get a nice hot surface under the crust of whatever you're baking, but it also holds on to some of that heat. I started doing this because I had nowhere else to store my cast iron. So the cast iron that I don't use often, and I also don't mind too much if it gets banged up, is this huge skillet. We did not get a full-on mix at the bottom of this, but I'm gonna guess my beautiful recipe is gonna be forgiving. I could have, well, we'll just have to hope. We're gonna end up with a little, maybe a little runny muffins if we didn't get a good mix on this. I'm hopeful. I remain hopeful. I remain optimistic. Look at that. These are the muffins that I'll save for us. You can't give away the ugly muffins. I don't know. I don't know, Chris. You might have rushed this one too much. Get in there. These will be the muffins for us with my finger in them. I started storing my cast iron in the oven. Oh, I'm making a huge mess. So I've got a couple of real big cast iron items in the oven: a griddle and a skillet, I suppose you'd call it. You know, a real big flat skillet thing. And between the two of them, they hold on to a ton of heat. So when I put something in the oven, they stay hot and hold on to some of that heat, so the oven doesn't lose quite as much. And if you throw a little bit of water in them, obviously it's not great for your cookware. If you've got nice cookware, you might not want to do this to it. But cast iron, you know, it'll make it unusable for the time being. But you can pretty much always bring cast iron back to life. So when you put your baked goods in, pour a bunch of water into your hot cast iron in there. The steam gets released, so you end up with a lot more concentrated steam on your baked goods. Watch out, Kev. Out the way, buddy. So, I don't know if I have enough room to do it here, but we're going to try. So we've got a thing of water. Bam. Muffins in the oven. Spin that around. We got Kev checking it all out. Muffins are in. I don't know if we're going to see any rise right now, but I'll throw a video on of the muffins when they come out, tell you if I'd eat them or not. And I guess I'll have to make one more video, maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow, with that chili when it's all said and done. But it'll be gorgeous. This one just woke up from the nap, and muffins are right about ready. Let's have a look. One thing I realized I did not put in my earlier video was how long to cook these for. They go for about 55 minutes. The recipe for the chocolate banana bread has them in a loaf pan. And obviously if you're doing it in a loaf pan, there we go. In a loaf pan, you're gonna go for longer because they're bigger. But these little guys, muffins, maybe 45 minutes, 50 minutes. They look a little flat to my eye. I'm worried that that stuff at the bottom of the pan might have been all the baking soda, but we'll see. I mean, I guess I could just tell you they worked perfectly and were delicious, but we'll see how it goes. Anyway, you won't get to eat any. They smell good though, eh? All right, we got one final look at these muffins. Taking these into my wife at work. I tried one. Oh man, you can rest in the muffins. There you go. You get that nice up the nostril shot. As they say, here is one I prepared earlier. The pineapple's still nice and juicy. The muffin's baked really well. Like I said, they didn't puff up quite as much as I expected, but they are delicious. I would and have definitely eaten that. You still get nothing. But for today, pretty proud of my housewife game. We're going to keep it going. A little bit of joy in our hearts, muffins in our hands. Take it easy, guys.